Hi everyone, I'm Coach Nate Law from coachlaw.biz. Like and subscribe as I tell you 10 things that I would have done differently starting my own law firm. Number one, I would niche down in terms of practice areas and clients. So when I first started, I would say that I was willing to do almost anything within a certain area of law. But if I was going to do it differently, I would work harder at describing what my ideal client was and who that person looked like, so that when I was talking to other people and when I was fielding calls or inquiries for people needing help looking for a lawyer, then I would know exactly who I needed to invest in and who I needed to go after. And the more specific your niche, the easier it is for other lawyers, other attorneys, and other firms to know who you are and know the type of best clients to refer to you. The second thing I would have done differently is utilize flat fees. And if you're not comfortable using flat fees, at least get a bigger retainer. I mean, double what you normally would ask for. This is going to narrow down maybe some of your clientele, but it's going to result in you being able to get paid as you're earning your fee if you have the bigger retainer, or what I would really suggest is with the flat fee, you're getting paid up front instead of maybe months later after having done the work. This is really going to help your cash flow when you're starting out a law firm. The third thing I do differently is just be pickier about my clients. And I think just in terms of both personality and both the types of goals that the client is pursuing. And so I think being pickier about clients, what that looks like kind of on a practical level, is in your initial client interview, really asking, okay, so your goals are X and Y, but Z is a distant third. Or, really saying that back to them. So if I'm hearing you right, your goals are these things. And if those are goals that you are, excited about, then great. That's a good chance or good sign that this client is going to be a good fit for you. Number four is I would have really invested more time into knowing my why. Both my personal why, as far as how my law firm, how my career was going to meet my personal goals, the goals that I had for my family, myself, kind of outside of work, but also how my law firm and my day-to-day legal work was going to advance what I saw was really my broader purpose in terms of what I wanted my world to really look like and the world around me to look like. And I think that includes, what your potential clients are looking for as well, and making sure that those things, their goals and your why, kind of mesh and overlap. I think had I invested a little bit more time into knowing my why, I would have also then had a little bit easier time when I was making some of my first hiring decisions, because that really guides and shapes the type of person that you not only kind of attract that wants to work with you, but also the ultimate person who you're going to select. The fifth thing that I would have done differently when starting my law firm is have a specific marketing plan. And the marketing plan specifically more tailored towards the client's or the potential client's experience. So more than just saying, I'm going to, make X number of blog posts on my website a month, I'm going to do this on social media, or I'm going to, do things like that. I wish I would have tailored my marketing plan not so much around just kind of the numbers or my activities, like marketing activities like blog posts or social media or advertising kind of things, but really based it around kind of that Donald Miller approach, if you're familiar with his work, but really tailoring it around the client experience and understanding what the client or potential client is going to experience when they're looking for a lawyer, and kind of what's going through their head, just really the psychology aspect of what are the things they're looking for and how is that going to mesh with the way I am expressing how I might be able to help them. The sixth thing that I would have done differently when starting my law firm is establish an immediate habit of asking for client feedback. And this is both kind of throughout the process and at the end, which I think would give clients an expectation and an understanding of, I understand that they're judging me and my work, and also that I am concerned about how they're doing along the way. That's something that I think would have led to a lot more, wild raving fans of my work earlier on, because then I would have established, some of those opportunities to ask for Google reviews and things like that earlier on, which really, really help, especially with a new lawyer, when, people see you and they're like, man, this person looks a little young to be practicing law. Like, what are they, or whatever the thing is that they get hung up on. That was one for me, by the way. It gets past that, and it kind of gives them some confidence. And it just shows that you have compassion for them and their situation anyway. So that's one thing I wish I would have done a lot sooner, is just establish that habit of asking for client feedback. Number 7, and this one was painful. I really wish I had better researched my client relationship management software a little better before choosing it. So well-researched case management software is worth its weight in gold. What I did initially when I started my own firm is just kind of assume that what other people were doing was going to work for me, and I didn't look at how the specific software would meet my specific goals in my small law firm. What I did, and the big mistake that I made, was just simply taking Time Matters and saying, okay, that'll work because I'm familiar with it, I'm comfortable with it, we're going to use that in my firm now. And boy, was that a big mistake. That can work sometimes if the firms are similarly situated, but in my case, it just didn't. And I really wish I had spent the time earlier on to, just look at the different options and really weigh them in terms of not being afraid of, trying to get along with something new and know if it worked or not, but to really kind of start from more of a blank slate, much higher level view, and look at whether or not it's going to meet kind of the future needs and be in line with the type of practice that I was employing. Number 8, I wish I had learned more about business and not just law firms. So sometimes you'll hear coaches and people talking about helping lawyers get out of their head that practicing law is a profession, but it's actually it's running a business. And all the same math and psychology and strategy to almost any small business applies to your law firm. There's not some magic thing that like a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor or dentist or somebody gets a free pass on math or gets, that's just not how it works. There are definitely unique things to each area, but really just getting outside of kind of the legal profession and, not just looking at what other good, successful lawyers and law firms are doing, because I think there's some value to that, but I think we lean too hard on that, and I certainly did, and didn't look enough outside of law just for those basic business principles that are really going to get you the understanding of how to apply those to your specific situation. And isn't that what we learn as lawyers? We learn, the skills and, things like that, and then we apply them to a particular problem or case or client. And so that's all this is. Learning business should not be scary for a lawyer. If you want something to just kind of pick up today and start working on this right now, look at Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And then also look at EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey, because that also builds out a very specific way to lead a team and run a business. Of course, if you do want to start looking at one that's specific for lawyers, that's really basic and you're starting out, look at the E-Myth for attorneys. That's by Michael Gerber, and E-Myth just meaning entrepreneur. So take a look at that. That gives a good, kind of overview of applying real world business realities and strategy to being an attorney. Number 9 is get a coach. I mean an outside coach that has some business acumen and one that you're just comfortable working with personally. It doesn't have to be someone that's even doing it professionally necessarily. It's maybe just finding the person that's closest to you that you can trust. 2 things I wish I would have done a little bit differently when I first started out related to this particular issue of getting a coach was, I couldn't afford just paying a professional coach. Since then, I've invested in that and it's well worth the money. But when I was starting out, the 2 things that I wish I would have done more is utilize my own dad as a coach, because he has a lot of business and sales experience that I think would transfer well into when I was starting a business. The other thing would be to utilize my next door neighbor attorney, who at the time was very experienced, and we had a relationship, and I wish I'd just been more intentional about that. As I was prepping this video, I realized that really the old saying of when the student is ready, the teacher will appear really applies in this kind of situation, because if you are an intentional mentee, a very intentional student, I think you're going to find that people are willing to be in the position of a mentor. They would be honored to, help you out. And so don't make any excuses for not having a coach right away. Number 10 on my list of things I would do differently is I would automate the tiny things. Automating the tiny admin tasks in my practice, in my business, didn't seem like a big deal at first. At first, I thought, well, this, doesn't take long. It takes 5-10 minutes. Maybe it's paying bills, maybe it's interacting with some vendors or something like that, but it was a regular, reoccurring thing, didn't take much time. And quite frankly, it probably even kind of felt like, looking back, kind of like a little bit of a break from kind of my regular lawyer work, casework, client work interactions. And so I didn't really mind it, but what I didn't realize is how those things would increase. The number of those tiny things would increase over time. And then when it got to the point of, okay, now suddenly I feel overwhelmed. Where did this come from? It would have been helpful to start automating those sooner, or at least getting a system, a written system in place for how that should be done and what that looks like, so that when I made a hire to be able to take care of those things for me and plug it in, it would have been much more plug and play, and I wouldn't be in the position of having to kind of recreate the wheel, in order to just get some really basic tasks off my plate so that I could focus on bringing the real value of both leadership and bringing in high value clients into my firm and not being distracted with those tiny, tiny things. So I think what I would encourage you to do is just don't underestimate the value of automating or delegating even the tiniest things that don't seem to be a big deal. And this doesn't mean that you're, too good for those tiny things or anything like that. It's a completely different conversation than, being humble, because what this is really you being laser focused on the things that are the most valuable for your firm. You can't be bothered with the small things, and I didn't realize that when, it was a smaller thing just starting out. So I hope that sharing those 10 things that I would have done differently are a little bit of an encouragement and maybe a warning for you. I hope that you can keep interacting with me and go to coachlaw.biz for more. Please subscribe this video. It really helps me out a lot. I really look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot.